Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! First, a bit about me. I'm a 40-year-old woman who's always had a passion for literature, especially Shakespeare. After working as an English teacher for years, I recently switched careers to becoming a freelance writer. This change gave me more flexible hours, which is why I found myself at the convenience store in the middle of a weekday. I popped in for my usual mid-afternoon snack, a ritual I developed since starting my work-from-home life. The owner's daughter, a bright high school student, was behind the counter. She'd been struggling with her Shakespeare homework, and knowing my background, she'd ask me questions whenever I came in. As I was explaining the nuances of Romeo and Juliet to her, the bell above the door chimed. In walked a woman who looked about my age, but her demeanor screamed, "I am more important than all you combined." Without so much as a look at the other customers, she started grabbing items off the shelves and tossing them onto the counter. Candy, soda, you name it. She grabbed it. Mind you, there were already people waiting to be served, but apparently that didn't matter to her. After a few minutes of the shopping frenzy, she marched up to the counter, completely ignoring the line that had formed. The clerk was in the middle of helping another customer, but that didn't stop our entitled friend. "Excuse me, my items are on a counter, so you shouldn't be serving anyone else. I'm clearly waiting to be served." The man being served turned to her with a patient smile. "I'm just buying cigarettes. It'll only take 30 seconds. You can wait your turn." Karen huffed and puffed like the big bad wolf trying to blow down a house of bricks. Then she turned to me, apparently seeking an ally in her righteous indignation. "Can you believe the audacity of some people?" I just giggled. The irony was too much. "No, but I do really appreciate irony." She just stared at me blankly. Clearly, the joke went right over her perfectly coiffed head. By this time, the man had left, and the clerk started ringing up Karen's mountain of items. As he bagged the last item, he announced the total. "That'll be $37.50, ma'am. You'll take $25 because that's all I have." "I can take $25, but you'll need to remove some items to bring the total down." And that's when the tantrum began. It was like watching a toddler in a grown woman's body. "I need everything. You can't deprive me of my needs. Who do you think you are? I am calling my husband." The clerk, bless his soul, did not miss a beat. He tells her, make sure he brings his wallet. By this point, the owner's daughter and I had completely forgotten about Shakespeare. Who needs the bard when you've got live theater right in front of you? Karen furiously scrolled through her phone, muttering, "Just wait until he gets here." I have no other choice but to wait. My shift doesn't end for another 3 hours. But it's only $10. She actually stamped her feet like a cartoon character. I had to bite my fist to keep from laughing out so loud. Then came the piece de resistance. Karen put her phone on speaker and called her husband. Karen, in a whiny voice, "Baby, I'm at the convenience store and the clerk is holding me and two other females hostage. You need to come and rescue us." Her husband's voice came through, sounding tired and all too familiar with these antics. He tells her, "You can't really be held hostage and be allowed to use your phone. So either you didn't have enough money or you were trying to buy alcohol without ID." That did it. I burst out laughing, joined by the clerk and the owner's daughter. Karen's face turned an impressive shade of red. She says sheepishly, I didn't have enough money. If you leave the chips, candy, and soda behind, which you don't need, and we have plenty of at home, I'm sure you'll have enough money. But I've told you about doing this. Say one more word, and I'm canceling your birthday." The look on Karen's face was priceless. She hung up the phone and turned to the clerk. "Remove the chips, candy, and soda." As she was about to leave with her significantly reduced purchases, she actually had the gall to say, "No one better post about this on Reddit." I couldn't believe what I'd just witnessed. As Karen stormed out, the clerk, the owner's daughter, and I shared a look of disbelief before bursting into laughter again. The clerk says, "Well, that was something." I tell him, "I think we just witnessed the birth of a new Karen meme." And the owner's daughter says, "I don't think even Shakespeare could have written a character that ridiculous." We spent the next few minutes recapping the highlights of Karen's performance. Honestly, real life is far more entertaining than any play or novel. And as for Karen's request about not posting on Reddit, well, I am not one to make promises I can't keep. Let me start from the beginning. I'm a single mom to an amazing 10-year-old boy. He's autistic and has severe allergies, particularly to peanuts. Even the slightest exposure can trigger a life-threatening reaction. We've learned to live with it, always carrying an Epi-pen and being extra cautious about what he eats. My son's autism makes some aspects of life challenging, but we found ways to cope. He loves routine and has a particular fondness for the local park. We go there every Saturday morning, rain or shine. It's our special time together and I cherish it. Last Saturday started like any other. We arrived at the park around 9 a.m. and my son was in high spirits. He headed straight for his favorite swing when I sat on a nearby bench, keeping a watchful eye on him. About an hour into our visit, a woman and her daughter showed up. The girl looked to be about my son's age, maybe a year or two younger. At first, everything seemed fine. The kids were playing on separate equipment, and the mom was engrossed in her phone. But then things took a turn. The woman pulled out a bag of peanut butter sandwiches and started handing them out to her daughter and some other kids who were playing nearby. I immediately tensed up. We were downwind from them, and even the smell of peanuts could be dangerous for my son. I got up and walked over to the woman trying to stay calm. "Excuse me, I hate to bother you, but my son has a severe peanut allergy. Could you please put those sandwiches away? Even the smell could trigger a reaction." The woman looked at me like I just insulted her entire family tree. "Excuse me? My daughter is hungry, and these are her favorite. We're in a public park. If your son is so delicate, maybe you should keep him at home." I was taken aback by her hostility, but tried to keep my cool. "I understand, but this is a life-threatening allergy. There are plenty of other snacks that I don't care about your son's problems. My daughter wants peanut butter, and she's going to have peanut butter." By this point, other parents were starting to take notice of our conversation. A few of them seemed sympathetic to my situation, but nobody intervened. "Please, I'm begging you. We come here every week. It's important for my son's routine. Can't you just this once?" "No, you don't get to dictate what my child eats. This is ridiculous." She turned her back on me and started aggressively unwrapping more sandwiches. I felt helpless and angry, but I knew I had to focus on protecting my son. I hurried back to where he was playing. "Sweetie, we need to go now. Come on, let's head home." "But we just got here. You said we could stay for 2 hours." I could see the confusion and distress on his face. Changes to our routine often upset him, and I hated having to do this. "I know, honey, but something came up. We'll come back later, okay?" As I was trying to coax him out of the swing, I noticed the woman approaching us, sandwich in hand. Before I could react, she thrust the sandwich right under my son's nose. "See? Nothing to be afraid of. It's just a sandwich." Everything after that happened in slow motion. My son's eyes went wide and he started gasping for air. His face swelled up almost instantly and he clutched at his throat. I screamed for help and fumbled in my bag for the Epi-pen, but as I pulled it out, the woman snatched it from my hand. "Stop being so dramatic. He's fine. You're just trying to make me look bad." I couldn't believe what was happening. My son was on the ground wheezing, his lips turning blue, and this woman was holding his lifeline just out of my reach. "Give it back. He's dying, please." I lunged for the Epi-pen, but she dodged me, holding it over her head like it was some sort of twisted game. "Not until you admit you're overreacting." By this point, other parents had rushed over. One of them, a tall man, grabbed the Epi-pen from the woman's hand and tossed it to me. I caught it and immediately jabbed it into my son's thigh, praying it wasn't too late. The next few minutes were chaos. Someone had called an ambulance, and I could hear sirens in the distance. My son's breathing was still labored, but the medication seemed to be working. The color was slowly returning to his face. As the paramedics arrived and started treating my son, I became aware of the commotion behind me. The woman was yelling at the other parents, claiming she'd done nothing wrong and that we were all ganging up on her. But nobody was buying it. Park security officer, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises immediately. This is a public park. You can't make me leave. Actually, I can. What you did was assault, and I've already called the police. You can either leave now or you can wait here and explain yourself to them. The woman's face turned red with rage, but she finally seemed to realize the gravity of what she'd done. She grabbed her daughter's hand and started stomping towards the park exit. This is ridiculous. I'll be filing a complaint. You haven't heard the last of me. As she left, I turned my attention back to my son. The paramedics were preparing to take him to the hospital for further treatment and observation. I climbed into the ambulance with him, holding his hand and trying to soothe him. The next 24 hours were a blur of hospital rooms, tests, and gory conversation with doctors. But my son pulled through. He's resilient, my little fighter. A few days later, I received a call from the local police department. They wanted to know if I'd be willing to press charges against a woman from the park. Apparently, several witnesses had come forward with video evidence of what had happened. I thought long and hard about it. Part of me wanted to just put the whole incident behind us and move on. But then I thought about what could have happened if that man hadn't grabbed the Epi-pen or if that ambulance had arrived a few minutes later. I thought about other kids with allergies who might cross paths with this woman in the future. So I said yes, I will press charges. It wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability and hopefully preventing something like this from happening to another family. The legal process is ongoing, but I've been told that the woman is facing serious charges, including assault and reckless endangerment of a child. She's also been banned from all city parks. As for my son and me, we're doing okay. We've started seeing a therapist to help us process what happened. And believe it or not, we've even started going back to the local park. It was hard at first, but I didn't want fear to rob us of something we love. It's been a difficult journey, but I'm hopeful that some good will come out of this terrible experience. I've lived in this quiet suburban neighborhood for about 5 years now. It's a nice place, or at least it was, until those new neighbors moved in next door about a year ago. At first, I tried to be welcoming. I even brought over a homemade pie when they first arrived, but it didn't take long for things to go south. These people were a nightmare from day one. Always drunk or high, blasting music at all hours, but worst of all, they seemed to think everything in the neighborhood was up for grabs. It started small, a potted plant here, a garden gnome there, but soon enough, they were lifting entire pieces of furniture from people's yards. I tried talking to them, but it was like reasoning with a brick wall. Hey, I noticed some of my stuff had gone missing. Have you seen anything? Nah man, haven't seen nothing. Maybe you should keep better track of your crap. But I saw my bench in your backyard yesterday. Prove it. And that was it. I called the police, but they didn't do much. Said it was a civil matter and that I should install security cameras. That lot of good that did. For months, I'd wake up to find something new missing from my yard. I'd wait until they passed out from whatever bender they were on, then I'd hop the fence and take my stuff back. It was exhausting and infuriating, but the last straw came during one of their infamous parties. I work as a day laborer for a local carpenter, and I had come home during my lunch break to grab something I'd forgotten. That's when I saw it. Their front door wide open, music blaring, and a bunch of sketchy-looking people stumbling around my normally quiet street. Something in me snapped. I was done being the nice guy, done playing by the rules when they clearly didn't apply to everyone. That's when I hatched my plan. I went back to work and told my boss what was going on. He's a good guy, and he could see how stressed I was about the whole situation. We came up with a plan that was just crazy enough to work. The next day we drove up to my street in a company van. My heart was pounding as I jumped out, impact driver in hand. I ran up to their house, my hands shaking as I started unscrewing the hinges of their front door. Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Just taking what's mine. You know how it is. I couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth, but the look of shock on their faces was priceless. Before they could react, I had the door off its hinges and was hauling it to the van. We sped off, my boss laughing hysterically as we dumped the door in the skip at one of our work sites. When I got home that evening, I half expected to see the police waiting for me, but no, the door was still missing. They jerry-rigged some kind of makeshift covering, a pallet with a mattress stuck behind it. It looked ridiculous. The next day, they'd managed to scrounge up a piece of chipboard to cover the entrance. But the best part? They were quiet. No music, no parties, no stolen items. It was like they finally realized they weren't untouchable. A week later, I was in my yard when I saw one of them approaching. I tensed up, ready for a confrontation. Hey, about the other day. Yeah? Look, we might have gone too far with some of our borrowing. How about we call it even and start fresh? I couldn't believe my ears. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was something. We didn't become best friends or anything, but things definitely improved after that. They kept their music down, stopped stealing, and even returned some of the stuff they'd taken from other neighbors. I learned that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in this case, theft with theft. It wasn't my proudest moment, but it got the job done. Sometimes karma needs a little push in the right direction. I've always been a bit of a smart egg, especially when it comes to school assignments. It's not that I don't like learning, I actually love it. But sometimes I can't help but push the boundaries a little. That's how I ended up in this whole mess with my English teacher. Let me take you back to my high school days. I was in my junior high, and English class was usually pretty fun. Our teacher was cool most of the time, but she could be a real stickler for rules when it came to assignments. We were reading Frankenstein, that classic book about the monster created by a scientist, and it's actually a pretty wild story when you get into it. Anyway, we got this assignment about the book. The teacher handed out papers with questions we had to answer. One question caught my eye. It asked us to write a letter as if we were this little girl from the book. See, in the story, Frankenstein's monster learns to speak English by listening to this girl's lessons. The girl's family was from another country, and for some reason, I had it in my head that they spoke Arabic. So there I was, staring at this question, and a mischievous idea popped into my head. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I wrote the entire letter using Arabic letters, but spelled out English words? I know a bit about the Arabic alphabet from a world cultures class I took the year before. I figured it would be a clever way to answer the question while also showing off a bit of extra knowledge. I spent way more time on that one question than all the others combined. I carefully wrote out each word using Arabic letters, making sure the English spelling was correct. It looked like a bunch of squiggles to anyone who didn't know what I was doing, but I was pretty proud of my handiwork. The next day I turned in my assignment with a smirk on my face. I couldn't wait to see how the teacher would react. A couple of days passed and then came the moment of truth, the day we got our assignments back. As the teacher handed out the papers, I noticed she was giving me a strange look. When she got to my desk, she paused. I'd like to see you after class. My heart skipped a beat. Was I in trouble? Did she not appreciate my clever trick? After class, I nervously approached her desk. You wanted to see me? Yes, about your assignment. What exactly did you do here? I explained my thought process, how I used Arabic letters to spell English words for the letter question. I say, and why did you think this was appropriate? Well, the question asked us to write as if we were the girl writing to her family. I figured she'd use her native alphabet, even if she was writing English words. The teacher looked at me for a long moment, then something unexpected happened. She started laughing. In all my years of teaching, I've never had a student do something like this. It's certainly creative. So, am I in trouble? No, you're not in trouble. In fact, I'm impressed by the effort you put into this. However, next time, maybe add a translation for those of us who can't read Arabic. I couldn't believe it. Not only was I not in trouble, but she actually liked my idea. I walked out of that classroom feeling like I just won the lottery. Word spread quickly about what I'd done. Some of my classmates thought it was hilarious, while others just rolled their eyes and called me a show off. But I didn't care. I was just happy I'd managed to make my assignment stand out without getting into trouble. As the school year went on, I noticed the teachers seemed to appreciate my out of box and thinking more. She even used my assignment as an example in class once, talking about creative ways to approach writing tasks. Looking back, I realized how lucky I was. Not every teacher would have been so cool about a student basically writing their assignment in code, but I guess sometimes taking a risk and being a little clever can pay off. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.